Welcome to the Green Hat Local SEO Podcast, where Kyle Sabra delivers hard-hitting, actionable tips and strategies to help business owners dominate their local market and crush the competition. Kyle's no-holds-barred approach cuts through the noise of traditional SEO, focusing on battle-tested tactics that deliver real results. He's here to arm you with the tools you need to skyrocket your rankings, generate more leads, and grow your business online. If you're tired of hearing the same old SEO nonsense and want to learn the truth, this is the podcast for you. Get ready to put on your green hats and learn SEO secrets the other guys can't handle. Now, here's your host, Kyle Sabra.
This is Kyle Sabra with Green Hat Local SEO, and this is another episode of the Green Hat Local SEO podcast. And I've been fighting off a cold for the past 2 weeks, and this got me thinking about maybe things that we don't often think about as business owners, as web developers, or as SEOs, and that is accessibility for our websites. So what do I mean by accessibility for websites? Well, here in the U.S., we have the Americans with Disabilities Act, and almost all local home service-based businesses fall under that. In fact, I would have a hard time finding one that wouldn't. So basically, with the Americans with Disability Act, you need to make your workplaces, your businesses, accessible to people with certain disabilities. And so this falls, there are certain types of titles. There's Title I and Title II, and depending on what kind of business you are, you either fall under this or you don't. You're either Title I or a Title II business. But let me be clear that if you are a home service-based business, like if you are an HVAC company, or if you are a landscaper, or even like something like a dentist, you are going to fall under one of these titles. So you have to be ADA compliant. So, and this obviously goes if you have a physical location. If you don't have a physical location, check with a lawyer, but you probably don't have to fall under the ADA. But, however, that does not mean that your website is exempt in either case. Your website needs to be ADA compliant. It needs to be accessible to people with disabilities. And unfortunately, a lot of people really don't take this into consideration when they're building their sites. A lot of people don't know about this. And I have seen it myself with my own two eyes, where people have gotten sued because their websites were not accessible. So if you actually spent money on your website, you used an American developer, you spent more than fucking $500. It wasn't some stupid bullshit Fiverr job. If your developer was worth his salt, he would have made the site ADA compliant. However, if you cheaped out and you built it yourself, or you got some fucking Fiverr $20 special, or went with some overseas bullshit, I can almost guarantee that your website is not ADA compliant, and you are opening yourself up to getting sued by some dickhead lawyer. So, what does it mean to make your website ADA compliant? Really, it's things that are obvious to us, and then some other things that may not be as obvious, and some things that are going to what the white hats would lead you to believe hurt your SEO. So a couple of biggest things that I see with website compliance for home service-based businesses is not having proper HTML structure, having your H1s, your H2s, and your H3s done logically on the page, writing bullshit on your alt text, and not having enough contrast between colors on your page, which affects me personally. I'm colorblind, so sometimes I don't notice these things, which is why I don't develop websites. But let's look at the first one. So HTML structure, what does this mean? So for Google doesn't give a shit if you have a span tag above your H1 tag, or if your H3 tag is above your H2 tag. Honestly, it does not care. But to be completely ADA compliant, you need to have a logical HTML structure, which means you need to have your H1s first, then your H2s, then your H3s, then your H4s. It's okay if you have an H2, then an H3, and then you start another H2, but you don't want to do H1s and then H3s and then H2s, which I see a lot with these Fiverr gigs and with cheapy overseas developers, because they don't really know what the fuck they're doing. They just style something the way it's styled and throw it up on a page. page. So you need to make sure if you want to become fully ADA compliant, that you are following this logical site structure. Really, the only reason to have like an H2 above an H1 or an H3 above an H2 or whatever is if your dev designed the website, improperly, if they're being fucking lazy or honestly just didn't know what they were doing, and that's just how the theme was styled, and that's what they're going with, which I see, again, a lot with bullshit Fiverr gigs and with Upwork gigs and shit like that. So, alt text. One thing that a lot of white hats talk about, and really, just frankly, a lot of shitty SEOs and really low quality SEOs do is, you need to put your keywords and your alt tags, and Google hears about alt tags, blah, 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 blah. Which they don't. Like, we've proven this time and time again. That's a very, very, very small part of SEO. But what we have seen, and again, this is one of the things that I've seen personally, is if you keyword stuff your alt tags, some dickhead lawyer can pay somebody with a disability to go to your site, see that your alt tags are just keyword stuffed and not descriptive like they're supposed to be, and then sue you for that. It's bullshit, it's fucked, but it happens. I think there's something like 4,400 lawsuits in 2024 based on the accessibility of the website themselves. As an aside, I used to work for a local government entity over here, and we would literally have people coming in and measuring the widths of the doors and the heights of the mirrors, and if they were so many inches above sinks and stuff in the restrooms to make sure they're ADA compliant. And then they would place a complaint with this government, and the government would just pay them off because it's easier than actually litigating it. So there are people who literally make their income doing this. So, colors. So what you want to do is make sure that your text and your fonts have enough contrast from the background that they're easily readable. So what you're supposed to have is what's called 4.5:1 contrast, which doesn't mean anything to anybody listening here, but essentially what it means is you got to make sure that you're not putting like light gray text on a white background or dark gray text on a black background or something like that, because people can't read it. I mean, not only is it bad for ADA compliance, but it's just bad for your users, right? And this is something that I've seen too when people want a certain look for their site, or if they think it's fucking edgy or whatever, things like that. But really, it doesn't help anybody. And again, for somebody like me who has a hard time seeing colors, it pisses me off sometimes too. Somebody will put two colors together that I have a hard time seeing, and I don't know what the fuck is going on. Then I have to highlight it and shit like that. So that's another way that people don't really think, or it should be obvious, but people don't really think about, how this could be ADA compliant. And then there are other things too, because you got to remember, if somebody is visually impaired and they're going to your site, I mean, I can't remember how many people there are with disabilities in the U.S. I think it's something like 20% of Americans have disabilities. I don't know how many of those are visually impaired, but visually impaired people are going to need some help with their life too. They're going to need to hire a plumber or a handyman or a dentist or something, and they are still going to be using the internet to do that. They're just going to be using a screen reader. So one of the reasons why your alt text has to be descriptive is because screen readers are looking at this, and this is how screen readers are understanding the page. This is why you have to have your H1s, H2s, H3s in a logical order, because screen readers are looking at this, right? So the other thing too is that when you are building out your websites, it's a little bit harder, and this is where it's good to make sure that you have a US-based developer if you're worried about ADA lawsuits and stuff like that. But make sure that your website is also keyboard accessible, right? Some people, they literally cannot use mice, but they can use a keyboard, right? So if they are able to use a keyboard, and this is where a lot of websites, if they're using something like Elementor or Divi, really kind of fall flat, is making their site keyboard acceptable, just because there's so many different things on there. So the more simpler you can make your site for somebody to be able to use a keyboard, the better. That is absolutely something that most people would not think about unless you are a professional website developer here in the US who knew about these laws, and it's something that you kept in mind when you were building out your site. And on top of that too, going along with the screen reader, you need to make sure that you have labels for any forms or buttons on your site, because screen readers don't know what the fuck this shit is, but they're going to be able to read out the labels on your site and tell the person who is trying to get in contact with you where the contact form is. So make sure you put descriptive labels on your buttons, on your contact forms. Make sure your contact forms, again, have a high contrast in colors between, not just between the words in the background, but also between the form fields and the background as well. So this is a lot of stuff to think about. If you want to not really take a shortcut to make things easier on you, and if you're using a WordPress site, there are WordPress plugins that you can use that are going to help you be ADA compliant. So here at Green Hat at GHLS, we like to use one called Ally that was recently purchased by Elementor. Another popular one is called Accessibe. That's ACCESSIBE. That's probably the most popular one out there, actually. And both these are really great at making sure your website is, as ADA compliant as it can be, as a plugin can do. There's still some things that it can't do, like adding in descriptive alt text and things like that, but it can put a widget on your site to help somebody adjust the contrast, to help somebody adjust the font size, things like that, to make it easier for somebody with visual impairments to read. The other thing that a lot of people, I really only see this with enterprise level companies. I never see this with home service companies, but it's also kind of important, is to make an accessibility page on your site detailing what you have done to make your site ADA compliant. Maybe put links to HTML, like stripped down HTML pages, so the screen readers can read these easier, or somebody with a visual impairment can see these easier too. And also, how you would fix how are you planning on fixing any ADA compliance issues in the future. So doing all this is really going to kind of cover your ass when inevitably, which it's going to happen, some dickhead lawyer is going to sick somebody on you and just try to sue you and extract as much money as they can, because they're fucking leeches, right? So that's about it for this episode. I just want to give a quick rundown on the importance of ADA compliance for your website. ADA compliance doesn't really have much to do with SEO. In fact, Google does not give a shit about it at all, but it is going to cover your ass from fucking leech lawyers who are just trying to make a buck off of wherever they can. Again, my name is Kyle Sabroff from Green Hat Local SEO. Check us out at ghls.io, or check out our testing community if you want to learn more tips and tricks and get more to the nitty-gritty on SEO. That's the Rank Advantage Phoenix testing community, and I will talk to you guys later.